All right, Brennan. So I think our first appropriate question to ask you is, how was Bora Bora?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Len, who's also on this call, got to go, so I'm sure he has his own thoughts as well. But I to say it was the best vacation slash trip I've ever been on would be an understatement. It like definitely was. And what was really cool, at least for me, was that it was no pressure sort of environment. So it was, because there's other people from the business there, right? So, if you're not too careful, it could feel like a work trip and not feel like a vacation. But everything was sort of just like optional. Hey, we're going to be all doing this tonight. If you want to come, you can. If you don't, you don't. And if you really just wanted to step away and relax, you were able to do that. But the destination itself was incredible. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. I mean, just shallow, beautiful, crystal clear water. Our bungalows had glass in them, so you could see, fish and stingrays and sharks swimming below where you were sleeping every night. And they put us up at the Four Seasons. So, I mean, you're talking, it was first class everything. We flew to get there was kind of tough. I went from Florida to San Francisco. I stayed in San Francisco for a night. I took Colleen up to Napa and we did wine country for a day. And then we flew from there to Tahiti. We did 2 days in Tahiti. And then from Tahiti, we went to Bora Bora and did 8 nights in Bora Bora. So all in all, I was almost out of the office for almost 2 weeks. It was pretty crazy. You have a day of traveling there and a day of traveling back. All in all, I think it was like 12 or 13 days, but an incredible experience. Sigcor really did it right. We flew first class everywhere we went. We had those awesome seats, where you got to like lay down and sleep. And it was, they bring you 2 meal services. You had free drinks. And then at the resort, we had a bunch of resort credits. So a lot of stuff was essentially comped. And then, if you went over the budget, then you owed kind of the difference. So I think my tab at the end of the whole trip, I think I spent $750, which, I guess is not too bad considering our rooms were 4,000 a night and the airfare was $25,000 for Colleen and I getting down there was 25,000. So they spent a ton of money on us. I couldn't be more thankful. I don't know the exact number that they spent, but just doing the math in my head and just tabulating everything. I'm guessing it was close to $1 million. It could be less, but it's certainly, just doing the math and everything, seemed like that's how much they put into it. And so it was super cool because you were hanging around, Gary, Vera, Rich was there, and then the top 10 owners in our business. So the conversations were small in terms of size because there was only 13 of us there, and our plus ones. So you got to get into some pretty fun and intimate conversations, plus to get to know people across the business that I didn't really know that well. And then really coming out of it with a stronger relationship with a lot of the top performing guys. And then the opportunities to see Gary drink a beer and some tequila, and it was have him let his hair down a little bit and hang out and sit in a lawn chair and kick his flip-flops up and talk about the old days. You kind of got a different version of Gary out there, which was a lot of fun too, just to hear and learn from his experience. And it was way less of like, it was way more vacation, not like, anything party, or that wasn't the vibe at all. It was a lot more just everyone's relaxing, we're having a good time, just kind of shooting the shit. We all did a poker night. So we brought poker chips and cards and we all sat around and had some drinks and some cigars and played poker too, which was a lot of fun. So, I can go on and on. It was just really an incredible experience. Stingrays, sharks, beautiful fish. Everything you could possibly imagine from the full tropical experience. It was definitely that. So super grateful to be able to go. I'm incredibly motivated to win and go again. If you are anywhere near the running, you should really push to go for it, because we were all able to vote. And we had a discussion on the last night where Vera goes, okay, we have to pick the top 3 destinations for next year. And where do you guys want to go? Just really an interesting question when you think about it. Like, hey, someone's asking you, I'm willing to take you anywhere in the world. Where would you like to go? And so we kind of just all sat there and talked, and we debated a bunch of different places. And we ended up coming down to the final 3, which were Bali, which is in Thailand, New Zealand, and Italy were the three that we ended up coming up with. So New Zealand sounds kind of funky, but if you haven't done any research on New Zealand seems pretty cool. They have like glaciers and beaches within 2 hours of each other, which I didn't know. I didn't realize New Zealand got snow like that. And so someone threw that up there. We did a little research on it, and that looks like a great place. Plus, some of the best beef in the world apparently comes from New Zealand. So we get some good steaks and some good eating too. But yeah, an incredible experience, Jamie. I don't know any other way to put it. It was pretty awesome. Four Seasons had an app. So, if you needed anything, you just texted them and just said, hey, I need more pineapple juice to my room. And somebody in a golf cart would go flying down over the ocean and bring it to you for a fee. But, you just charge the room and use your credits.
That's
It's
awesome.
pretty fun. Yeah.
So Len, since we're on the topic of Bora Bora, you want to throw in your perspective?
I think Brennan did a phenomenal job in explaining the experience. It was unbelievable. I can be more grateful to experience that, especially with the people that I experienced it with. We got really well connected and built up some pretty cool relationships and experienced some cool things, like Brennan mentioned, swimming with sharks and stingrays. That was like epic. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me, the biggest takeaway was just being able to have the conversations that I probably wouldn't have ever had with like Gary, Vera, and Rich. That opportunity itself was priceless. We literally got about 2 weeks with them. So, we got to talk about a bunch of things, and it just gave me more gratitude in the business that, I'm in. It gave me more even motivation to just, strive for more. And it was just I don't know, it was awesome overall. So that's pretty much my takeaway.
That's awesome. They certainly pampered you guys. I mean, the rest of us were plugged in online to everybody's social media, so kind of felt like I was there in many ways, and looked like just such an awesome time. So I'm sure you guys are fired up to do it again.
A somewhat underrated part of it was everyone's +1 got to go. So it was really cool to talk to Gary's wife. I've never gotten a chance to really talk to her. In a deep conversation. I think I've just said hello to her maybe at a conference here or there, but never really got to hear, and she was just telling all sorts of stories from, back in the day, and from her perspective. It was really cool to kind of hear her perspective on things. And then other guys in our business, to get to know their significant others, was really cool too. Some of these guys outkick their coverage, in my opinion.
They outkick their coverage. Okay,
Yeah.
we won't ask who. We'll save that.
No. Just some people did great. They have a lot. They have some of the guys have really amazing support systems and significant others in their life, which is really cool to see too. Because that's part of winning, right? It's you can win in business, but if your personal life's a wreck, it's not really winning. So to see the people winning in both areas is really cool too.
Yeah, when you get to know Susan, you can see clearly why Gary's successful. Now, not to take anything away from Gary, but you're like, oh, she does fit the mold of behind every great man's a great woman, no doubt about it. So
yeah.
I'm sure that's a true statement for all the +1s, to your point. Well, that's great. I mean, I think there's 36 people pacing for the $1 Million Club. I think this next year is going to be a little more competitive for top 10. And Brennan, I saw your speech at Keys. Those videos are out now. Your speech, Hageman's, a bunch of stuff. And so, you're obviously pacing. I don't want to jinx anything, but if you keep doing what you're doing, you are going to break the record, and you are going to run a $3+ million ICL. I think you said in your speech, your goal is a $5 million year. But I just want to know, what are your goals for your ICL? And I want to know, what are your goals again in 2023 for your org?
Yeah, I think the $5 million goal is obviously a bullish and big goal, but I think you gotta kind of set your sights high and shoot big. And if you come up a little short, you're going to be a hell of a lot further ahead than most people that are thinking small. So I believe wholeheartedly there is a path to doing 100K wires consistently in our business, where the owner can have 30 to 40K of owner's profit every week. I think it's doable. I think if you have the right, recruiting, you have the right guys, you're the right leader, you're on the right program, and you work your tail off, that it's something that can definitely be achieved. And I believe I don't know, I believe I'm in the best situation possible. I believe I've been dealt pocket aces, and I don't want to screw up the hand. I mean, that's really the way I think about it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I choose to believe things that serve me. There were people that told me Miami was a bad market when I first moved here. You know, it was like, oh, a bunch of people that speak Spanish, rains all the time, HOAs. There's a whole bunch of reasons why my campaign wasn't going to work here. And I just chose to focus on things that, you know, were in my control, that I believe to be true. And then if I worked hard enough, I could, you know, sort of make happen. So 5 million is the goal. 100K wires, we're getting, you know, 60 to 70K wires a week right now. So a 20 or 30% lift in that should get us to where we need to go, which is only hiring about 15, you know, 10 or 15 more guys. When you have high headcount, is easy to do. So I would say, just from an ICL standpoint, you know, I want to be able to save at least $1 million again personally, which is what we did last year. So I should be at least 1 or 2 million, or closer to 2 million saved personally this year would be awesome from an ICL perspective. And I want to get at least 1 or 2 deals out. I got 2 assistant managers. Rachel should be going out in the next 90 days. Len's Eye's got an assistant manager that hopefully will be out in the next 90 days or sooner. So, you know, from an org perspective, we're already doing about 120 grand, 130 grand a week in revenue. We just got to get the deals out. So hopefully by the end of the year, we're pushing that 200 grand org sort of production, and we're either flirting with the consultant mark or just shy of it. And then obviously it's only winning if everyone's winning. So I want to, you know, make sure my guys Isaiah and Fergie are rocking, and make sure they're cranking 20K wires a week too, because you know, our business is getting easier, in my opinion, and the more tools and resources are being funneled into it, which for someone that works hard and does the right things is only going to take your game to the next level. My fear, though, is that as this gets easier and more tools and resources are given, some people are going to do less because they can keep the same sort of survivor mentality. And that's the part that I'm trying to break, is like, hey, Syncor's throwing a lot of money, resources, and tools. I want to take these and build something massive to show them that these resources and tools are working, not do less effort to get a similar result, which is what I see a lot of people do. So yeah, it's interesting because you know, why is average rep pay is up by almost 100% in the last couple of years, but headcount is down by 50%. You know, if you would have told me that 3 years ago, hey, rep pay would be double, everyone here would think headcount would double with it, or even triple, because you'd be able to hang on to more reps. And that's not necessarily true right now. So my fear is that some people are, you know, hey, I have lesser reps, but they're making more, which means I'm still getting what I need. And I think that's the lazy mentality, and that's how we lose, in my opinion. So if we can find a way to drive rep pay and increase headcount as a whole, I think we're all in for a really, really good ride. So that's kind of my answer to that, or my immediate thoughts.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, obviously, I've been around, you know, a couple decades now, and you know, anytime we go to the client asking for more money, historically, what we see is performance dips. So they give us more money, but then our productivity goes down, and it ends up being the same. It's like, how do we keep productivity the same and just keep adding more money to the game? So to your point, again, if commissions doubled, well, gee, I mean, logically, shouldn't the headcount double with it, or at least stay the same, you know, at minimum? So that is an interesting thought, and I'd love to see how you break that mold. I mean, obviously, you're a go-getter. I think that's part of the answer to the equation. You're not a settler. You know, you've seen those commercials before. Son, you know, we're settlers. You know, it's like, no, the Fulkersons are not settlers. You know.
Yep.
You know, so I could be wrong, but part of what I believe to be your secret sauce, because you know, I've been to your office. You know, Vera went to your office, and you know, her and I touched notes. I mean, there's just something great about your morning atmosphere. Now, again, I'm putting lots. Maybe I should back up. I'm putting myself in the audience's shoes here, and a lot of people kind of like, wow, the Fulkerson's got a goal to make another $1 million this year, to 2 million this year, like. You know, he's running this crazy business, and hey, listen, I'm not running, you know, a business near that right now. So I would say, well, listen, if you do what Brennan does, even just for the morning part, you're well on your way to running that kind of business. Do you think I'm off or on that train of thought?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think you need to put the time into people. And I think if you look at the old school model of our business, It was have the reps come in for 30 minutes or an hour, send them off to the field. But then like on Monday, you hang out with this team. Tuesday, you hang out with this team. Wednesday, you get beers with this guy. Thursday, you hang out with the new start. And you're putting in all this extra time outside of the office into those people. So either way, you're going to have to put time into people. It's kind of what I just learned from kind of studying the old model versus, where our business is at today. So instead of just feeling obligated to go out to eat and buy people chicken wings and, go to breakfast with people all the time, I think if you just really come up and show up prepared every day, you add value to your people, you teach, coach, train, and develop, and you really invest the time. Sebastian says it is, growing people are happy people are loyal, and loyal people are productive, and it works sort of in that order. So I think when you are constantly filling people's buckets up, you're able to create those touch points. You can have those small, meaningful conversations. You can see things that are happening. So I've got away from Zoom, because on Zoom, I can look here and I can see everyone's face. But when I'm around somebody, I can be like, oh, I can tell Jamie's off. Jamie's not right today. And on a Zoom box, everyone looks like they're doing just fine. But when you're around somebody, you can really feel their energy. So that's why we try to get back to the office as soon as we did. And got back into that sort of habit and that routine. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I look at the office part as sort of the locker room before the game. It's the opportunity to build relationships. It's the opportunity to talk strategy. It's the opportunity. It's like it's the protected time. And then when we go play, that's when we're buttoned up professionals and we got to go play. It's kind of just the exact same way I used to think about it in sports. We were silly in the locker room. We had fun, and we obviously were joking around, and we wanted to win, and we had nicknames and things for each other. But then when it was time, when the game started, we were professionals. We were out there trying to win. We had a mission. We worked together, and that was our goal, was to put points on the board. I look at it running an ICL very similarly. The office is our time. It's our people's time, and I don't want to waste that time. I want to make those make it as special as possible. And in the early stages, you're usually going to have to be really, really involved in that process to be able to build it. And then once you build that culture, it'll actually be self-sustaining. It won't even really need you anymore, because the seniors, my older guys in the office, will teach the new guys, the freshmen, on what it's like to work inside of MTN, my company. And then as those seniors graduate and they get promoted and they're a part of launch teams or they run their own offices, the next generation has already learned, and the traditions are sort of passed down. And then just every year, the new guys are constantly being taught by the older guys, and that's how we're able to maintain this sort of stability. And then, as a coach or the person that's overseeing the operation, I just make sure that what's being passed down is the right things that we're about, which is, integrity, doing the right thing, working hard, focusing on being the best that we can be, and striving for greatness. Right. So that's really kind of the secret. If you want to call it one. I just think it's business and sports for adults. And if you could take the two and combine them together, you're set up for a really, really, good culture.
Yeah. And so just to dissect that a little bit, like I remember coming out to Fort Lauderdale, and I'm like, hey, Brennan, what time should I be at your office? You're like, well, you want to know what time everybody comes to the office, or are you asking what time I come to the office? I'm like, yeah, I want to be there when you're there. And I think you said something like 7:45. And I was shocked. I'm like, dude, you're not on a B2B campaign. You're running a retail program, last I checked. I'm like, you get there that early? So can you just walk us through? And it was awesome to watch. You're there at X time, then the owners come in at Y time, then your top leaders come in at Z time. So can you just walk us through real quick what your morning atmosphere looks like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I like getting to the office usually around 7:45 or 8. That's generally before anybody else is there. I like that sort of quiet, protected time where I can really just have my own thoughts, and I can go through data, reports, look at teams, look at our team productions, just get a pulse on where we're at, just to be as best prepared for the day as possible. And then usually people start to filter in. We have our first official core meeting, which starts at 8:45. So usually my top guys will get in right around that time. We do 45 minutes of our core meeting. That's the secret sauce of everything, because that's where we're teaching our top people basically how to run an ICO. And we're essentially kickstarting assistant manager training way before they hit assistant manager. So they start walking, talking, thinking, and acting like someone that is in the know, or is like basically like a little mini owner. Doesn't mean I'm giving them necessarily all the keys to the kingdom, but I'm letting them in on some of the secrets of what make our office really run. And I'm asking thought-provoking questions. I'm getting them to think for themselves. And really my whole goal there is to replicate as many people that walk, talk, think, and act like me as possible. And in theory, if I have as many of those people walking around the office as I need, technically, I could be removed from that equation because I'm no longer a linchpin or someone that or a bottleneck that everything has to run through, right? So certain conversations can be delegated. I can empower certain people. I can have conversations, with people. So that would be kind of, what that morning sort of time looks like. And then the rest of the leaders come in right around 9:30. So, and then the guys are usually off to the field by about 12:30. So, and then first pitch for a lot of guys is until about maybe 1:30 or 2:00. So that's kind of, it's more about filling their bucket up, coaching, training, and developing. It's maybe less field time, but when people are learning, growing, and developing, and they're super charged up and they have clarity, that's the big piece. They have clarity on what they're doing. They're going to take more action. And when they take more action, they're going to get a bigger result, which is what you see in the field. So I'm not afraid to raise standards. I'm not afraid for us to have a high, try to push that rep pay as high as we can. Cost of living is going up. I'm sure everywhere, if I asked all of you guys in your market, is rent more expensive than it was 2 years ago? All of you would say yes, although it is coming down a little bit in some areas. But, if you go to the grocery store or you go to freaking, like, I think when I was in college, a Chipotle bowl was like $6.45. Just the cost of things is going up. So if you're not raising your standards and you're holding a shitty standard and allowing people to make crappy money in your company, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else where they can make more money, just plain and simple. So you might as well raise your standard so that people, if they're hitting the standard, can at least have a livable wage to make it in whatever market that you're in, right? So to me, it's like, that's part of it. It's like, yeah, I'm doing well, I'm making all this money, but part of me feels like morally obligated to hold a high standard so that people can like live their life and not struggle and be like, hey, Brennan, I need a loan, or I love work. Like, this is the biggest tip off. If you hear, I love working here, but I'm just not making enough money, your standards got to go up. Like, I had too many people years ago that would leave my company for that reason. Like, Brennan, I love you. I love the culture. I love everything. I'm just not making enough money here. Standards got to go up. Training's got to get better, and limiting beliefs need to be broken. Those are generally the three things that have to happen. So get guys out on road trips, send them to offices where guys are crushing, or get road trips into your office where someone's going to set the pace and just destroy it, to destroy any limiting beliefs. Because once you get a couple of those guys humming and rocking, people used to think $3,000 a week was like not possible. And then I started having multiple reps start doing it. And now it's just a very normal thing. Or doing $1,000 of commission in a day. That used to be like only on Black Friday on retail that would ever happen. We have people that'll do that on a fucking Thursday. Now, just out of nowhere, someone will drop $1,000 or $1,200 in a day, and it's random. Lots of people are doing it. So that's sort of the advancing momentum stage. But if you're trying to build it, it certainly starts in, as silly as it sounds, it does start in the morning, and it starts with your preparation. I think, a lot of guys in our business that are really good managers, but not very good leaders, you're going to run an average office. There's a lot of guys that are really great leaders, but really poor managers. You're going to be okay. I think you want to be a superstar in our business. You got to be a great leader and you got to be a great manager, and you can't wiggle on both. Like, you got to be great at both. And if you can do both, you're going to do really, really well in our business.
Yeah.
Superstar stuff.
Yeah, you're certainly dropping a ton of gold here, Brennan. And I've got a thought, and then I've got a question for you. So,
Sure.
just a John Maxwellism, he says the meeting before the meeting is always the most important meeting. Right. So whenever there's a meeting, it doesn't matter what company you're in, what culture you're in, the meeting before the meeting is always the most important meeting. So that's obviously very true in your business. That time from 8:45 to 9:30 is where you're developing your lieutenants that'll go on to, run your new companies for sure. I mean, I love that. So then obviously your morning atmosphere is longer than average. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. Like, what, you run till noon? Like, that's a long atmosphere. So I'm just curious what the priorities are. Like, what are the workshops? Like, if you have to kind of put the buckets, workshops, campaign meetings, morning meetings, like what's all happening in that window?
Yeah, we have we have 2 phases of sales training for entry levels. One is like you're brand new and we're going to teach you sort of the intro short story, 4, 5s, and 8s. And then there's an advanced sales training, which is for entry levels that have been around a while but haven't gotten promoted. That's more practicing scenarios and product knowledge and overcoming objections and more campaign specific stuff. And then we have like a normal leaders meeting, which I think we all know what those are. We have a Bravo meeting, which is for promoted leaders that are not hitting interviewing metrics. There we're focusing on skills, habits, or mentality. Usually mentality-based things are going to be what's talked about there because they have the demonstrated competency to sell, but they're not getting the results. So usually that's a mentality-based thing. Could also be habits, which is why we talk about habits. And we also talk about skills, but 9 times, I shouldn't say 9 times out of 10, 7 out of 10 times, we're going to talk about mentality in that meeting. And then we have an alpha meeting, which is guys that are hitting, obviously the interviewing metrics. They get one-on-one time with one of the owners, and that's free for them. The only thing that we can't talk about is sales. So we can talk about all sorts of different things. We've talked about aliens. We've talked about Joe Biden. We've talked about Bitcoin. We've talked about what China's doing. We talk about lots of different things in that meeting. That's a really creative and fun time. Not always the most productive, but people are able just to throw shit out there and we can create conversation, and it's just really great dialogue. And sometimes it's incredibly beneficial and we get on really specific topics and we dive deep on things. But that's kind of their guys' time. There's a campaign meeting, which is just going over numbers and performance. There's a morning meeting that we have in there. I have my core meeting, which we call our senior leaders meeting. And then crew meetings. We give our guys plenty of time to interact and work with their own teams. Their crew meetings are usually 15 or 20 minutes where they can give content, they can talk to their people, they can give recognition, whatever. And then we also have different, depending on the day of the week, we'll do a game. We'll usually do something quick or long, just depends on the day. And then I'm sure I'm forgetting something here. We do bells to celebrate sales and create energy, which is fun. And then I think that's it. It's pretty much everything in the mornings.
And so what's your source of content? Like, so, obviously you're providing value to your guys. Where are you getting the content from?
Yeah, so I think the content is derived from the team, the collective consciousness of our core group. So I wouldn't say it's coming from any one person or any one source. The underlying sort of expectation is that everybody is feeding themselves and that everybody is learning and growing and developing on their own. And then everybody should be able to come to the table with unique ideas and thoughts, because if everyone's growing and learning, then we should have plenty of opportunity or things to discuss or talk about. So that would be kind of where I would say it sort of comes from. You can pull it from books, you can pull it from world events, you can pull it from, I literally the white dude that I forget his name that won the dunk contest. That was a whole meeting. If you just watched the dunk contest and you learned about that guy's story, that was a meeting. This guy just, was windmilling dunking on, and all the best players in the NBA. And this guy came out of nowhere. But if you get to know his story, he didn't really come out of nowhere. He was working and grinding his butt off to get to that moment. And that moment was his opportunity to shine. And he made more in the dunk contest than he did in his actual salary, right? Like that was a huge win for that guy. So yeah, that was a meeting, right? Like there was a meeting right there. So there's things that happen in the world too, that as long as you just have your, antennas up and you're paying attention to what's going on in the world, a lot of stuff that's happening live daily can be formulated and turned into meetings as well that are really applicable to our business. So it's not like every day it's got to come from a John Maxwell book. Certainly we've done that, but that doesn't mean that has to be where it always comes from. It can come from other really unique avenues or areas as well, just as long as you're open to seeing certain things that way.
Yeah. Well, I love it, Brennan. Everybody's empowered to grow, everybody's commissioned to grow, and then, everybody's bringing something to the table. So, there's always new, fresh ideas because everybody's learning and sharing. It's a great culture that you've developed there. So, I could go on for a long time, just to respect everybody's time. We're going to kind of end this call, but Brennan, thanks so much. Thanks for really setting the pace and being the leader and being top dog right now. And, we're lucky to have you in the org, and we certainly appreciate your example, your leadership, and your willingness to share. Thank you a ton.
Yeah, no problem, Jamie. Thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate everyone listening. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Have a great week, guys.